Hi friends, it's Gwen. So September was kind of a crazy month. I am back in school and working, and my schedule has just been really busy between all of my obligations, events, meetings, and so forth, and I'm trying to get things under wraps as far as like a schedule so I can post more regular and I don't know, and continue my reading, because it's kind of like my downtime. It's away from all the crazy stuff that's going on at school or at work. And so I set a goal for myself. My goal every month while I'm in school, so for the fall semester, it will be September, October, November, and December. My plan is to read 3 books a month. And surprisingly, in September, I accomplished my goal, so I was really excited about that. And today, I'm just going to do my September wrap-up. So the first book that I read in September was in ebook form, so hopefully I'll post a nice little picture right here. That book was The Statistical Probability of Love at First Sight, and that was written by Jennifer E. Smith. And I know some other booktubers have recently been reading this book as well, but I just thought I would do a pro-con list about what I thought about the book, and then I'll let you know what I thought. So the pros were, it was a easy YA romance. It was a quick read. The characters were cute, and the whole story takes place in a 24-hour period, so I thought that was, you know, a nice flow, and that also made it like flow more, you know, quick. It made it a quick read. The cons to the book were that the setting was really nothing special. It's just about a girl whose parents are divorced and she's living with her mother, and then her father's getting remarried, so she's flying to go, you know, see her dad on his wedding day. Of course, she meets a young man along the way, and that's kind of about the love part of it. It is a typical YA romance, you know, it's a little bit predictable. I'm going to probably say typical and predictable in this video a lot, just because the books that I read weren't really shocking or, oh, I didn't really think it was going to happen that way. They were predictable, but sometimes that's kind of what you need, you know, to get you through a tough month. And so, yeah. I gave the characters in this story a 4, the setting a 3, the plot a 4, the conflict slash purpose a 4, and the resolution or outcome a 4 as well. So by a little bit of math, you could tell that I rated this story 4 out of 5 stars. It wasn't just the love story. It was, you know, there were some, you know, you could pull some deeper meaning from the story about, you know, family life and the blending of families, and it also features loss and grieving, and so it does have some other themes in the story as well, but I enjoyed it. 4 out of 5 stars. The second book I read was also in ebook form, and that was The Coldest Girl in Coldtown by Holly Black. And this, because I read it in ebook form, I really realized that I haven't read an ebook in a while. It's been a couple years, at least a year. And while I like the option, I really do prefer reading physical copies of books more than ebooks. So once I got through this book, I was like, yeah, I need to pick up a physical book next, because this ebook thing is really kind of tough for me. The pros were, it was about vampires, not sparkly ones. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I did like Twilight, so haters gonna hate. But it wasn't about that kind of vampire. It was about the vampires, you know, that I kind of picture in my head when I think of vampires. The characters were well developed. I thought some of them could have been a little bit more well developed, but overall the characters were well developed. I loved the Coldtown setting. While the first half of the story kind of followed, they were on their way to the Coldtown. That was just, you know, it started off in like a farmhouse or somewhere where they were having a party, and she escapes from that, and then they're in a car basically going across the town to the Coldtown. But I really thought that the Coldtown, the way that she built that world and kind of she left a lot to the imagination, but she also gave you a lot to work with too, so I really loved that. And when I was reading the book, I was like, why doesn't Walking Dead do that? They could have like undead towns, but whatever. The cons, the number one con I would have to say is it's a standalone. I was hoping that there was a follow-up book just because of how the book ends. I feel like the story could have kept going and there was a lot more to explore, but I understood why it's a standalone, and I understood why the author made that choice. The plot line, again, slightly predictable, but I enjoyed it. There were many plot lines, like her dealing with her family at home and her sister and her father, and she was dealing with the conflict of her ex-boyfriend, and he was like right there, and then of course the new guy, the vampire, and this sort. So there were many plot lines, and not all of them came to a good, solid resolution in my opinion, but overall I gave characters a 5, setting a 5, the plot a 3, just because it was broken up into so many different plots, and you're kind of having to, even when you're following one plot line, you kind of have to like remember that the other plot lines are happening at the same time, and sometimes that kind of, as you're developing this part of the plot line, you're like, oh yeah, so that's happening too. The conflict purpose, I gave a 3 because, to me, again, it was just divided attention. And the resolution, I gave a 4. I would have given it a 5, but I was so bummed that it was a standalone. So 4 out of 5 stars for The Coldest Girl in Coldtown. So far, so good. I needed to pick up a regular book, like hold the physical book in my hand. So that's what I did on my third book in September. For my third book in September, Danny at Danny Darling suggested a read-along for Cinder by Marissa Meyer. And while Danny was unable, she was kind of in a reading slump, so sorry, Danny, but I went ahead and read it. And I'll wait to read the second one in the series until you're ready. Okay, deal? Are we okay now? Okay, so I went ahead and read Cinder by Marissa Meyer. And the pros were, it wasn't your typical Cinderella retelling by the word Cinder and by the slipper, not the ruby slipper. It's not Wizard of Oz, but by the, stiletto. I was kind of like, oh, is this just a Cinderella retelling, like fantasy? I've kind of been la 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 for all the other booktubers that have been filming videos about this or talking about this. So now I'll be able to, listen to those. So, but I read this and it was really, I loved the story. It wasn't the typical Cinderella retelling. It was a YA fantasy. It had sci-fi elements in it because obviously, I mean, if you look at the cover, you're like, oh, there's metal in her legs. So it had like cyborgs and stuff like that, and it was set in a future New Beijing, which it was kind of strange because I was like, New Beijing, so they're really in Beijing? Or, I don't know. So it was a little, I had to keep reminding myself that that's where it was, but, and I knew it was in the future because of cyborgs and all that. But, so it had the sci-fi elements. Some characters I thought could have had a bigger role within the story and been better developed. For example, the doctor, I really wish he had a little bit bigger a part. He was really in it, in my opinion. I mean, yes, he was in it more, but he only had, like, where Cinder initially encounters him, like that conversation, and then towards the end of the book. And I think that he could have just been in it more. I think he could have been a really fun character to develop more. The cons of Cinder was that it left me wanting more because you kind of get invested. A lot of things happen in this story. People die, people go from, one way of thinking to another way of thinking, and then you're like, how did that happen? Was that fake? Were they not really, double guessing themselves? Like, so there's just a lot of, it was kind of like a lot left open. And then, of course, typical plot line, in the end, good wins and all that, or whatever. But, so I rated the characters a 5 because I really felt that the characters were well developed, especially Cinder and the members of her family and the prince and the Doctor could have been a little bit more well developed, but what you did get of him, he just seemed like an awesome character. And of course, all the other little cyborgs things. I just wish it would have been just a little bit more well developed, but overall I gave it a 5, so can't get any better than that. The setting I gave a 4 because they did describe the world, you know, they let you know that it was in the future, and they kind of let you know how they were handling things, but at the same time I kind of had to keep reminding myself, okay, I'm in New Beijing, I'm in New Beijing. The plot I gave a 3. The conflict purpose I gave a 4. The resolution I gave a 4. So another 4 out of 5 stars for September. So those were my 3 books that I read in the month of September. I finished this up a few days before the end of September. So I was like, okay, what am I going to read next? And then I picked up my 4th book, which I have not finished, but I'll go ahead and share that with you as well. So the 4th book that I picked up, I wanted something quick that I know I would love. It is Landline by Rainbow Rowell. I picked it up at Barnes & Noble. I posted it on my Instagram when I got it. But yeah, I was super excited to read this book. I wasn't sure if it was going to be my next book, but I just was like, yes, I need a Rainbow Rowell book. Let's see, I'm on chapter 21, so I'm getting there. I'll be done in probably a couple days, just because of my schoolwork load. It's kind of crazy right now. So far so good. It's very interesting. I'm not gonna rate it obviously or give pros and cons because I haven't finished reading it, and I think it's only fair that I finish reading the story, get the whole story in before I can really judge it. But I just wanted to share that I did start a 4th book and I'm almost done, so this will be featured in my October wrap-up. And so what are your reading goals? Do you have really busy months? And how do you juggle, reading and, fitting in your reading time, filming these wrap-ups along with your busy life? Have you set a goal for yourself? Or are you just doing it as you can? Sometimes that's just the best option, I think. But for me personally, I think setting a goal, 3 books a month, and then doing wrap-ups will, help me move along the year and, forget about my schoolwork and everything else that's crazy going on. So those were my September reads, and I hope you had a great September reading month, and I'll see you next time. Bye.